Good morning, Mrs. Makaspak. This is my report. My topic is hatching. Hatching, or hature in French, is an artistic technique used to create tonal or shading effects by drawing, or painting or scribbling closely spaced parallel lines. It is also used in monochromatic heraldic representations to indicate what the tincture of a full color emblazon would be. When lines are placed at an angle to one another, it is called cross-hatching. Veronica, Albert Dürer, Veronica engraving 1513. Example of hatching. And cross-hatching in many darker areas, visible if viewed at full size. Hatching is especially important in essentially linear media, such as drawings and many forms of printmaking, such as engraving, etching, and woodcut. In Western art, hatching originated in the Middle Ages and developed further into cross-hatching, especially in the old master prints of the 15th century. Master E.S. and Martin Schwanger in engraving and Gerhard Reuwich and Michael Waldschmidt in woodcut were pioneers of both techniques. And Albert Dürer in particular perfected the technique of cross-hatching in both media. Artists use the technique varying the length, angle, closeness, and other qualities of the lines, most commonly in drawing, linear, painting, and engraving. The main concept is that the quantity, thickness, and spacing of the lines will affect the brightness of the overall image and emphasize forms, creating the illusion of volume. Hatching lines should always follow the form by increasing quantity, thickness, and closeness. A darker area will result. An area of shading next to another area which has lines going in another direction is often used to create contrast. Line work can be used to represent colors, typically by using the same type of hatch to represent particular tones. For example, red might be made up of lightly spaced lines, whereas green could be made of two layers of perpendicular dense lines, resulting in a realistic image. Cross-hatching is the technique of using to shade and create value before one can apply this technique to a drawing. There must be a basic understanding of the structure of cross-hatching. To make the basic structure, start by drawing 4 boxes side by side and label them 1 to 4. Starting in box 1, repeatedly draw a parallel line that goes through to box 4. Next, starting in box 2, repeatedly draw a parallel line that goes into opposite direction of the parallel lines in box 1, continuing through to box 4. Next, starting in box 3, repeatedly drawing a straight line that goes through to box 4. Lastly, in box 4, repeatedly draw a horizontal line. The idea here is that after each box, another layer of a line is added to each box as you go, slowly building on each other, and therefore adding value and shading through line work. Variations. Linear hatching. Hatching in parallel lines. Normally the lines follow the direction of the described plane. Cross-hatching. Layers of hatching applied to different angles to create different textures and darker tones. At its simplest, a layer of linear hatching is laid over another layer at 90% angle, to which further diagonal layers may be added. Other methods include layering arbitrary intersecting patches. Cross-hatching, in which layers intersect at slight angles, can create a rippled Moore effect. Contoured hatching. Hatching using curved lines to describe light and form of contours. In technical drawing, the section lining may indicate the material of a component, part of an assembly. Many hatching patterns have been standardized by the American National Standards Institute, or ANSI, and the International Standards Organization, or ISO. True, there are many other predefined patterns that may be used. Thus, the hatching pattern of steel varies from that of aluminum, copper, etc., The hatching patterns are not only for metals. Patterns for grass, gravel, brick, and others are frequently found on architectural drawings. Use of hatch patterns in engineering and architectural drawings. Cross-section of a cam follower's tool. Notice the double lines for the steel pattern of the outer race component. Also, the commonly used pattern of diagonal lines and variations of it are shown. A drawing from the 90s. Partial hatching on the stone facade is used for clarity. What is hatching? A basic art technique to add tone and shadows. In the art world, the word hatching refers to a shading technique that implies shade, tone, or texture. The technique is done with a series of thin parallel lines that give the appearance of shadow in varying degrees. It is often used in drawing and sketching, most often in pencil and pen and ink drawing, though painters do use the technique as well. How to use hatching? For pencil or pen and ink drawing, using hatching is one of the easiest and cleanest way to fill in the dark areas by drawing a bunch of fine lines that are more or less parallel. The area as a whole is perceived as being darker than the individual lines are in reality. Artists often apply hatching lines quite quickly. This makes the areas look as if they're just a series of randomly placed marks or hatches. However, an artist skilled at the technique can make even the deepest shadows look clean. The quality of the application of the lines depends entirely on each individual mark. The lines can be long or short, and they're almost always straight. Some lines can have slight curves to indicate subtle curvatures in the subject. Although people tend to visualize hatching as messy pencil slashes, and they may appear so on purpose in chalk or charcoal drawing. The results of using a technique can be very controlled as well, such as in ink drawing, where it can be done in uniform, crisp, clean lines. The distance between your hatching marks determines how light or dark that area of a drawing looks. The more white space you leave between the lines, the higher the tone will be. As you add more lines or move them closer together, the grouping as a whole appears darker. Famous artists who use hatching, especially in drawings and sketches, include Albert Dürer, Leonardo da Vinci, Rembrandt van Rijn, Auguste Rodin, Edgar Degas, and Michelangelo. That's it. Thank you for listening to my report.